Norway. Oh my god. Get your act together. I'm sorry for all Norwegians that you have to live this way in your lives. I can't even. It's a matter of fact, Henrik. Welcome to the Flick Club. How are you, Henrik?
Well, I'm fine, all things considered.
Well, it just turns out that we're gonna talk about the worst person in the world.
Which is not neither one of us.
No. Yeah, thank God for that.
The time of miracles is not yet over.
But is it a Danish or is it a Norwegian film? I understand that it's actually shot in Norway and it's a Norwegian film. So it's kind of a collaboration in production. French, Danish and Norwegian money has been used to make it, at least.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess to figure out exactly how the production has been split in this one. This very much is a Norwegian movie where money is also coming in from well, at least in distribution wise, from Memento Distribution, which is a French based company, and Trier Film, which is from Sweden, if I remember correctly. So it's kind of like hard to say exactly who gets the ownership to the worst person.
Yeah, so let's just say it's a Nordic film. And it's the last film that we're going to discuss regarding the Oscar nominees for the Best International Picture.
Yeah, we actually, like, in last week, in the previous episode, we were kind of hesitant on the whole question, do we even manage to see this film? Because it was not circulating in anywhere, the worst person. That was kind of running theme with the best foreign picks this year, that most of them were movies that were not in circulation, even though they were nominated for the Oscar. And then all of a sudden, these things just finally crept up, and like Drive My Car ended up in some streaming service, and it got theatrical release. Now The Worst Person has a theatrical release, so we were able to see the final, the 5th out of 5 movies, kind of in the last minute, just so that we hastily managed to get this done before, before the ceremonies.
Yeah, gosh, it was quite the interesting release schedule for these movies on streaming and theatrical. So in Finland, this movie came out on 18th of March. Thankfully, Drive My Car, which also premiered on 18th of March, it became to streaming services before that, so we were able to talk about it a little bit before that. But my God, I mean, they could make it a little bit easier for us to watch these films. Maybe next year with a better attempt, guys.
Yeah, you would think that there would be a heavy push on the distribution end for these movies, seeing how they are now being nominated, and there is all this free publicity for these movies, but nope.
No. Okay, worst person in the world. Starring Renate Reinsve, I believe you pronounced his name, who already got the Best Actress prize at Cannes for her performance. I will have some thoughts on that.
Well, it's the best performance, and I would say the best thing in today's film.
Yeah, why is this film not working? Well, first, can we talk about, Henrik, can we talk about the fact that this has been written by 2 males who've written a story about an indecisive woman who keeps jumping from one relationship to the next? Hey, what could go wrong?
Well, absolutely nothing. It's like one of the 5 best films to come out worldwide this year.
What does this film want to say, Henrik? That life is a collection of events.
That's a really good question, because it's just a collection of events. It wants to, Well, fuck it. Let's just voice it out
go.
in the beginning. The first person in the world is a film that wants to say a hell of a lot about, basically about everything, or at least give you the impression that it's saying it's talking about everything societal. It wants to come out as a societal topics, the movie, but at the end of a day, what it ends up saying or what it manages to say, it does not really amount to that much. It's something freedom of speech versus societal consciousness, and something you are a free individual. That's basically where the message at the end of a day kind of boils down to.
Yeah, what message? The message that I got from it on the first go is that, well, you had a lot of relationship, you had a lot of chances in life, and you ruined every single one of them. Will she feel regret? What will be her next step? Did she learn from her mistakes? Where's this going? It's going absolutely nowhere. It's like real life, really, very much in the sense that there is no story to tell. It's just random. There's no beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah, I took it that the core theme here in first person is this notion of kind of female freedom versus the societal expectations that are mostly put on the members of the female gender.
No, Erik. It's just a misrepresentation of the female and the sex and how you should behave in a society. And it's a matter of fact, Henrik.
Well, fuck it, if that's the road we are taking. Just hold on a moment.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's talk about Norwegian empowerment cinema.
Yeah, Henrik, it's so sexual. You see penises, you see fucking, and you see adultery, you see hopping from relationship to another. This is a big no-no. This is not what you're supposed to do. And now I'm hearing that many people are saying that how much they can feel empathy and kind of relate to this movie, where we have a person who just is literally kind of the worst person in the world, doesn't care about anyone's feelings and just keeps relationship hopping. What is this? No.
Well, actually, that's the one side I can kind of side with or agree with. I can actually kind of see the why so many people feel so strongly connected to the movie and its main character, Julie. Like all that you said about the relationship hopping and having sex with different persons, being absolutely indecisive in every aspect of her life. All of those are true, but none of those things are necessarily negative. Like, this is where I would say that the film's point of female freedom kind of shines the strongest. We do have the idea that you meet up a person and then you settle down with the person and have kids. Well, now speaking of a heteronormative relationship, etc., and your life kind of just goes. It flows the typical way and forms the typical narrative.
But let's be realistic, Henrik. That's the function of a woman. No, but serious. Oh.
See, that's the spirit of matriarchy getting back at you.
No, but Henrik, I mean, what does a woman do if? I mean, what's the position of a? You have to have somebody who goes to work and somebody who takes care of the children and the home. And in this case, it would be a woman taking over the apartment. It's a full-day job, really, to take care of the home. That's the reason why people break up nowadays, because nobody's taking care of their home anymore. There has to be somebody, and they don't have any money to pay to somebody to take care of it. I see a real conflict there. And this movie is supporting this perversion. of the modern society.
Yeah, I know, man. Like I too would hate to put money into actually buying a dishwasher instead of just getting a girlfriend and having her do all the cleaning.
Mm.
But like I said, this is a movie for the modern sensibilities.
Yeah, but you shouldn't market outright this kind of behavior. It's so immoral. It's bad for the society as a whole. Norway is such a corrupted country like all the other. Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, they are all corrupted and should fix their ways.
Yeah, but it's so hard because the global Jewish conspiracy behind all of this SJW bullshit. It's so strong. Like it's not just a deep state. We're kind of fighting against the global version of the deep state.
I'm gonna fight to head and toe against this kind of behavior.
Well, you kind of can't. You kind of can't because now they have managed to weaponize a common flu in the form of coronavirus. So they just got an even more tighter iron grip over basically the entire world. I swear to God, our listeners will listen only the first 15 minutes of today's episode. They will hear this part and they will think that we are being absolutely serious at the moment.
But Henrik, I'm really serious about this.
About what?
We don't need washers. Just a moment, I spilled my beer. And second, to change gears, we can talk about tonight's director. Yeah, he's quite an established, known already for several films such as Dancer in the Dark, The Idiots, Breaking the Waves, Europa, Antichrist. All great films, by the way. Yeah, so The Idiots, have you seen it before, Henrik?
No, I haven't. I really don't watch French movies that much.
Was it the French? Let me check really quickly. What? Fuck! It's a Lars Von Trier film. This is Joachim Trier. Shh.
Oh fuck.
But director, anyway, very very established, and we're happy to talk about.
Yeah, makes films and stuff.
Yeah. This movie reminds me of the film Cosmic Testicles, where they also had close-ups on intimate parts, and this kind of dualistic drama with a mix of very very fancy worded discussions on the universe and its meaning, and I think this main guy, who is the target of the love at least 80% of the way, I think he could hold very erudite discussions, but the lady just shrugs it off like, nah, I just want something more simple. I want my coffee every day with the cereals.
Yeah, and speaking of Cosmic Testicles, at least that film had like proper societal roles and not this flip-flop stuff that you have in Worst Person.
Yeah, just to make it easier, to simplify. That was the great thing about Cosmic, that it didn't beat around the bush, it didn't have all these complicated societal complications. Just get to the point and
yeah, I mean,
produce babies.
Yeah, because at the end of a day, like what movies are, like what they really are, they are a way to share ideas and viewpoints, and they can have like this educational effect because of this. Like you express this complex train of thought, and you put it in a form of images and sound that work together, and through this media you present your idea to the next person, who very much thanks to because the image and the sound play off from each other, is more kind of a easier for that person then to take your viewpoint to his heart and actually learn something from it. And it's because of this that I do actually share your idea that movies should put heavier emphasis on kind of the idea, the word point of view that they want to present to others. So there's kind of a responsibility. Like, what should you say through your movie to the world at large and to the audiences? What are the ideas that you should pass forward?
Yeah.
And Cosmic Testicles does that right, and the worst person in the world has like the worst ideas in the world.
And the ideas that are taken in the worst person in the world are just really shoved down the throat, like literally. So I think,
I've been saying this for quite some time, that Seriously, especially Hollywood, but apparently the rest of the world also, should finally just, like, stop putting politics in movies.
Right. Have you seen the interviews with when they are touring, Trier and Anders and Renate? When they're together, they seem so offensively intellectual. I mean, they really are trying to market that Norwegian and Scandinavian intelligence so much that it's kind of on the off-putting level. You look at the interviewer and he's like, yeah, but they don't really even understand what they're saying. Like, god damn, stop being so intellectual. Just speak in the normal language. Life is not so complicated. 3 shits, 3 meals, and go back to bed.
But this folks intellectualism basically is precisely what today's social movements are all about. They are not really presenting any fixes to anything. They are not making anybody's life better. But it's a one framework through which you can actually, like, pretend that you are somehow intellectual.
Yeah, precisely, which is exactly what's happening here, Henrik. There's so many ideas that the director just wants to show to us, but then what to do with them is kind of another story. Yeah, it's a corruption at full display, and so sexual and so irresponsible. Think about the feelings of all of these characters that have to go through this. And I mean, if she would have just stuck with the first relationship, she could have been really happy with this guy. Well, until the cancer stage, of course. But
Yeah, but screw the characters. Think about the feelings of all the men in the audience who have to see through this film.
yeah, and the institution of a marriage is at real test here. What kind of a person is this? What are you looking to achieve in life? And it's exactly like the men say. Like, are you serious? Are you sure? No, she's never sure. She's just kind of like going from one thing to the next, whatever floats her boat that day. And that is kind of wrong as well. You can't depict females in this way.
But what you see in the character of Julie, like you said, she's someone who is constantly afloat, is unsure, does not actually know what she wants, and just acts, just do things. And what you see in all of that, especially through the marriage aspect and the whole motherhood aspect that she so strongly opposes throughout the film, you actually see the separation between the state and the church, or the church and the individual. Like, Julie very much in the film, she's being presented as someone who is scientific, studies like 2 highly scientific fields in university.
Absolutely.
Can't really finish either degree, just switches from medicine to psychology. But both are scientific fields. And with scientific fields, what you have is the abandonment of the church, of the spiritual, because these days very much the scientific communities, they just want to like have this separation from the church and from God. That's also kind of the Norwegian situation here. Norway being a Christian country, and now you have like this modern woman main character who is this science social something stuff, and she doesn't even go to church, not once in this film. She does not pray, has no cross, has nothing. So very much like a person who is science is not God. And then you actually, throughout the film, you actually see the absolute disaster that ends up being her not being able to find a way, her not being able to find her place in society, and just constantly being like shifting from relationship to another.
This is what happens when you sell your soul to the devil and join NATO.
Precisely.
You just inherit these corrupted ideas. Oh, let's take another one. And it's also gonna suggesting that once she becomes a photographer, she is selling her soul to the not tangible, the unimportant education, the unimportant tasks, the unimportant job in this life. And once she becomes kind of promiscuous and goes with this other guy to the kind of a hilltop, what they see from the hilltop is a Radisson Sus hotel. It's another suggestion that they should have sex immediately and destroy everything that's left in their current relationship, which he should have bound to.
And speaking of selling souls, it's not just her soul that she's selling, because one kind of old belief in these non-hygienic pagan cultures and beliefs has been that the act of photography, taking a picture of somebody, also kind of robs that person of his soul. So by being a photographer, Julie here throughout the movie gets the chance to photograph a whole lot of, well, surprise, surprise, this being modern film, men whose souls she then can steal through that through her photographs. And as she's selling her soul, she's also selling those stolen souls of the innocent men.
Yeah, it's also the way that the film is shot. It's shot very well, which is kind of reflecting on the character of hers, and then kind of giving you the idea of all of this promiscuous things that she could go and through around the town, especially the kind of stop motion thing, which was done 100% in CGI, I believe. And there's this one shot where she puts the hand of the guy on the girl's ass, even though they're in stopped in time, going through in her head what she really wants, which is another penis. So this kind of a sexual overdrive that is going on during this sequence, and then putting the hand on the ass with this beautiful cinematography, it's all coming back to the lady, that the lady wants a new relationship. And that is very deep symbolism in the film. I thought that was not really touching. It was disgusting, and reminds me of the Spanish guys who are always touching their girlfriends' asses.
As we saw in The Hand of God. Oh no, wait, that was an Italian film.
Yeah, what that was the reference? The hand of God. Where is the hand of God?
Well, it's touching her ass.
I didn't think of it that way. So she's able to stop the passage of time. What do you think about that little plot twist? I mean, it was kind of realistic, unfortunately. This is the true depiction of Norwegian lifestyle nowadays, I'm afraid. But what do you think about her superpowers of stopping the time?
Well, those obviously were the gift from Satan for her act of selling all those souls.
It's good to know that I will be a responsible husband no matter what happens. I'm not gonna contribute into this kind of lifestyle. But so, given that this is happening in a Nordic city, in the city of Stockholm for the most part, I thought they must have used some CGI, because I didn't see any of those bridges that you have when you go with the Viking Line with the huge cruise ship. Everybody knows that there's a lot of bridges in Stockholm. I didn't see any evidence of that, and I've heard that the director likes to mainly shoot the films in his homeland because he's terrified of flying. He has a lot of phobias. So this must be some kind of editing trickery.
Not just trickery on the landscapes and, the bridges not being there, but you also do notice that another thing that's been completely removed from the film, most likely through editing trickery and CGI, is all the immigrant-based crime in Stockholm.
Oh yeah. And they were able to have all of these people contributing to the CGI scene of stop motion. And you don't see any foreigners there. I'm just asking, how is that possible?
Well, through heavy usage of CGI. Like, let's face it, Stockholm basically is a war zone these days. It's hell. It's a worse place than Ukraine at the moment, thanks to all the immigrants. And they have been kind of able to. I would guess that the way how they have done this is that they have gone to the photo archives of the Stockholm from something from 1980s, 1990s, before the immigrants came, and they taken like those images, and then at post edit they have had the footage of the ruined buildings and they have just taken like the images. They have to kind of like mapped the images and stretched them on top of the actual film material. This way, kind of creating the illusion that the buildings are still intact.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. But given that most of the film is shot in Luleå, I was kind of confused that we don't see any of those high landscapes also in the shots. There should be some kind of a, oh well, yeah, they are on the high mountain type of thing, that the high hill looking at the hotel. That's probably the shot where they used Luleå.
Then again, it also bears to remember that the whole idea of a huge landscape shot of a hotel existing on top of a hill or a mountain range is basically stolen 1-to-1 from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, that actually does the exact same imagery with the Overlook Hotel.
Oh, and I just heard from the interview of the director that their kind of main goal or a big goal is in these films that they are not going to put any references to any other films. They're just going to do wholly their own thing. Oh, well, here we go. That much of our own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that lasted for a long time.
Right. But then what about the film's failure to explain what it's really about? Because from what I heard, this is obviously some female fantasy, but the female fantasy was at some point given to these two writers of the film who must have gotten a little bit aroused about the story and thought, hey, this is a great movie to make. And I mean, it's so irresponsible. This is like this is like inverse version of a male fantasy put on film. This is like a sexual attack, but on the other side.
This is actually a clear-cut example of one of the biggest mistakes that you can make as a script writer, as a storyteller, which is that you get this idea that the story you are telling really is a good story and something that is worth telling.
Yeah, but what about the narrator then? I mean, we can already hear what she's saying, so she's just saying everything on double. I just couldn't quite grasp this meaning of using a narrator if you already have the voice in the background. Like I found going through my notes and trying to find answers what's going on the screen, but I couldn't find any information.
Well, I guess the usage of narrator is like a symptom of basically the writers losing their faith on their own work. Like they are now they start by trying to somehow be quote unquote renegade in their writing and having all these like modern ideas, but at the end of a day, when it comes to the way how the story is being or how the script has been written, they basically just all come back to the basic rules of script writing. Like, for example, the number one rule: tell, don't show.
Right. Oh, what's the other one? I'm promoting the use of psychedelics in a film with absolutely no consequences whatsoever. I haven't heard any outrage about this one. And it doesn't serve any narrative purpose. I mean, we already have it's more of the promiscuous play and being irresponsible and not respecting the elderly. I mean, if you're gonna do shrooms, there's a vast variety in the closest supermarket. Why do you have to use drugs? Say no to drugs. We don't support drugs in this podcast. Let's make it clear. We're not supporting the use of psychedelic mushrooms in this podcast.
No, you don't need drugs if you have God in your life.
And speaking of that, I think it's high time, Henrik, that we start skipping the films that include outright violence in the movies. I would like the Flick Lab from this moment onwards to completely abstain from all moving images that involve violence or sexual promiscuity or that promotes this kind of behavior that cannot be accepted, which can reignite some kind of traumatic memories in people. And it's irresponsible for the victims of people who have experienced violence in their life. For example, this is kind of a bad thing that we don't have any foreign people in the film either, in the stoppage scene, because they should be there. This film is hiding all the victims of violence, like the Afghanistan refugees.
Or the victims of Afghanistan refugees, which I guess was what you were trying to say.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. But yeah, I cannot I cannot go into this direction anymore. I've seen too much violence, and given that we have now a war going on and the world is going haywire, I think we should completely stop with the violent movies like Hellraiser and all this kind of torture porn. From now on, we could try to go with Disney films and try to find something as non-violent as possible and as apolitical as possible for our next curriculum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on us doing apolitical films, and I am with you also on us banning violence from the Flick Lab. Just as long as that does not outcount the Passion of the Christ, because that's a clear-cut example of a apolitical film, but also a film that uses violence for the artistic merit, and it really is not even that violent, but like. I'm like I must maintain that we have to keep like the Passion of the Christ low level of violence in the Flick Lab. Outside of Passion, I'm like absolutely with you. We should ban violence from the Flick Lab.
Yeah, thank you. I'm surprised that you are on the same vein here, and I'm really happy about that. I mean, Passion of the Christ, it's a different theme because it's based on actual real life occurrences, real life history, kind of like the Pocahontas, the film from Disney. So I'm really happy that we were able to do that episode at least, and I'm really sorry for our listeners for all the past mistakes that we've promoted such violence. But there's something to be learned from Disney's Pocahontas. What about the chapter structure of The Worst Person in the World? It's borrowing from literature but not being literature. What does it want to say? That it's a book?
Yeah, that was my take on it. That's basically where the director's heart at the end of the day lies, which is kind of fitting, seeing how the books they are a superior form of storytelling. At least when you compare it to movies. I'm not so certain about video games. Like it's very much a tie between books and video games, which are better for like forms for storytelling, but most definitely, yeah, books triumph movies.
Yeah, but given that this is depicting modern life in Norway, I'm sorry for all Norwegians that you have to live this way in your lives, but maybe this is a reference to the DVD player. I remember that if you put on a disc to a DVD player, it gives you different chapter selections. So maybe by the virtue of this having chapters, it's kind of like you're jumping ahead in the story, kind of like DVD chapters. You can just...
Which actually makes this movie unfitting for theatrical presentation, because in movie theaters you can't skip and jump from one chapter to the next. You have to like look at them in one chronological order.
So it's kind of like a movie for attention deficit people of the modern millennia.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, we're so good at this.
Well, we have been doing this thing now, for 3 years. Over 3 years.
Yeah, about time to get it right.
Yep.
The director said that there's a lot of tonal shifts in the film. I do agree. And he was quoting Hitchcock, or at least paraphrasing, that if the audience is prepared and want to go with you to where you go, then they'll go anywhere with you. But I would say, again, this is very irresponsible. You can't just, you can grab the audience, but you should be also responsible with your storytelling. That in the end, the woman will have a happy ending where she will marry one guy and have at least 2 kids and an apartment and a dog, cocker spaniel preferably. But at least in the frame of reference of the modern day Norway, at least to have some kind of a conclusion for the film, that would have been to take the 2 guy characters and Renate's character, put them in the same room and have threesome. There's a happy ending for you.
It actually would have been quite fitting for the movie, seeing how, well, during the shroom trip, you almost have a threesome on this film. So it would have been kind of a, like, once again, to get into the rules of of movie storytelling, you have the concept of setup and payoff. So that type of ending, it would have actually utilized this rule. During the shroom trip, you have the setup, and at the end you would then have had the payoff, which now obviously this movie does not have.
Especially because this film is so much against monogamy and traditional values. Why not just then go all the way and make it a statement about polyamory? This is how we do it, the 2020s. You don't have to be responsible for anyone. You don't have to make any commitments to anyone. Just live your life, man. Enjoy it. Have fun. Have shrooms.
Well, the reason why I think that ending does not happen in the film is purely practical. Like as already mentioned, this film was largely filmed in Uleåborg, most likely because due to tax deduction reasons. And Uleåborg as a municipal, it's kind of really stuck up in not the right values. So I do believe that it's the decision on the shooting location that they actually couldn't end the film with a threesome.
But then why use stock footage of Soviet Russia in the beginning of the film and then frame it with the ending of having cancer, kind of illustrating the breakup of Soviet Russia?
I believe that what they're trying to hint is the possibility that these characters are in Soviet Russia. Like, obviously, it does not look like that, largely thanks to lackluster cinematography and bad directing, but I do believe that, like, at least in the original script versions, it was written so that this story takes place in Soviet Russia.
And after the credits, you see the breakup of the Soviet Union. And I just kept thinking, is this the rebirth? Is this the rebirth? Is this the restart of values, or it's kind of going to these modern values after the breakup of Russia? This is too deep. There's too many ideas.
There's nothing to be read upon, the after the credits sequence. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing except just setting up these the next sequel, so that you can start build up your own cinematic universe once again. Like, this is the birthplace. This is the first film on the Åbo cinematic universe.
No, but Henrik, I thought it was happening in Uleåborg. Oh.
No. The film is shot in Uleåborg, and it ties into the Åbo cinematic universe, but where the film is actually taking place, like in story location, it's Minsk.
But shot entirely in studio as well. How does that work?
Well, if you are shooting in Uleåborg, well, where the hell would you be shooting except in studio? Like, have you seen the streets there?
Good point. I haven't visited, but I believe you.
Yeah, never do.
Norway. Oh my god. Get your act together. I can't even, Henrik. But yeah, would it be the quickies?
Well, why not? I can't believe that there's anything more to say about this film.
Yeah. Except that, ta-da! In case you didn't figure it out, we were kind of messing with you and wasting a very good episode to talk about nonsense about this film. But it's April Fool's. Fool.
Oh, yeah. It was all a joke. Ha. Please don't take anything literally.
Worst podcast in the world. But Henrik...
Well, goddammit, this is like the longest April Fool joke that we have had on the podcast.
That's true.
The Day the Clown Cried episode was about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Of this ridiculous bullshit.
Here I tried to see how long I can do the bullshit without Henrik knowing that I'm just going into the bullshit direction. But
I actually completely forgot that, April Fool's is coming out around once again.
Yeah. There was one point in the episode where, Henrik was like, where are you going with this sarcasm? I'm not following you quite anymore. Right? So we just started to go with the joke together.
Yep. Which was easier said than done.
This is not the easiest one to make a joke about.
It's not the easiest one to make a joke about because, at least on my end, Some of the grievances that, okay, I voiced out in hyperbolically in just an hour ago in this very episode, but some of the grievances are actual problems that I actually do have with the film.
And now we have to explain which ones were the. Yeah, good luck with this. Let's just say that I denounce everything that I have said so far. So let's just start from the scratch. What do you think about the worst person in the world? Really?
It's the second worst film of the Oscar picks that we have covered.
Okay.
I did not dislike The Worst Person as much as I disliked The Hand of God.
Whoa.
But not a bloody fan.
I do admit that I did get kind of emotional in some of the scenes, but when it went on and I tried to grasp what the director wants to tell us and what is this movie, then at the end I was kind of left empty-handed. I understand what the director wants to do here. It's just a collection of random events once again, depicting the life of this girl who I don't think that there's anything wrong that there's two guy screenwriters who made a story about the girl. Well, it just happens to be a girl, and there's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion. I just think that what they did with this wasn't completely delivering somehow, even though I really felt the performances. I felt that they were great performances, and actually I did enjoy her performance. But there's a lot of ideas, and I think it just doesn't go anywhere.
And that's my problem also. And it's because of this why I have to stress out to our listeners, please listen to this second half of the episode, this serious rambling part also, because in the previous, I understand we have already wasted an hour of our time. I'm sorry about it, but I do think that the second half is actually quite important, because during the joke part, we were dangerously close dancing on going into the cinema scenes territory, where we mix the jokey jokes and the actual film criticism and our actual problems that we really do have with the film together into this mishmash where the joke and the real actual problems kind of fuse together. And to avoid that effect, I do think that the second half of our episode today is just so that you can actually get the real grievances that we have. Because I'm actually 100% with you on that notion that the film kind of goes nowhere. Like you said, I too do think that the performances are strong here. Except especially Renates, who plays the main character Julie. Extremely strong performance. Great acting altogether. Also, like a hell of a lot. For example, Anders Danielsen Lai, who is the comic book artist Axel in the movie. But outside of strong performances, I didn't actually feel that this movie had that much to go on with it. Like I said already in the joke part of the episode, it's a movie that, in my opinion, it wants to be about all the societal issues, and it kind of ends up being well, not that much actually about anything. Like on surface level, yeah, it's about societal issues. It's a film that actually uses the words mansplain and womansplain and has the tampoon on screen. So on the surface level, yeah, there is going on this breaking of all of the social taboos, and there is this deep social commentary going on. But when you actually start to look at what is being said, like what is the underlying message, it, in my opinion, pretty much just boils down into, be free and don't worry. Like if you feel like you are lost and you don't know what you want in life, it's okay. And I took that was like pretty much the only message that the film really has. And everything else, all the social issues, the social political aspects of the film, they are basically just wallpapering.
Yeah, That's what I got from the film as well. If you don't know what you're looking for in life, that's okay because it happens to every one of us. But I have to say, I don't know if I was a, even though this is something that happens to many of us, the promiscuous side of things and doubting yourself, if this was really the one guy out of all the billions of guys on planet Earth, should I go with this or should I try in my mind with some other guy? Should I actually go with some other guy? All those questions. Yeah, but then she goes forward with that and destroys the first relationship, sort of, and then realizes that it seems that they were, kind of the couple for each other. At least I kind of got that message. But the film also very intentionally leaves it sort of open-ended. You cannot read Renate's face intentionally fully. You cannot see what's going on in her head when she's visiting Anders's character in the hospital. It's kind of take what you want.
Yup. Like when you strip down the story from all its trappings and you look at what is like what is the core story that the movie has to tell, in the end it's a story about one woman figuring out if she really loves her then current boyfriend, which here is the comic book artist Axel, and how this question of is Axel right for me clashes with the societal role expectations that have been put on Julie. As we mentioned in the jokey jokes part, throughout the film, Julie has an X number of boyfriends. With quick count, we have at least 5 different boyfriends. We have the one that she's dating when she's a med student. Then there is the one bald guy who she quickly dates when she's a photographer. Then there's the psychology professor. Then there's Axel. Then there is Eivind, the I'm not happy with my hippie girlfriend dude. And it's a kind of a like jumping from one relationship to another. With the underlying question, is Axel right for Julie? And in that moment, you have like the society expects that as a woman, you find like the one guy and then you stick with him the rest of your life. You have kids, you have family, etc., 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 etc. And by this boyfriend hopping, switching, Julie very much defies these expectations, and then her relationship with Axel is contrasted against her societal norm breaking with multiple boyfriends. But that's about it. Like in its barest form, that's what you get story-wise here. There is no huge character development. There is no any kind of a deep plot points or huge plot points. We at the very end of the film we have the plot point of Axel eventually dying of cancer.
Yeah.
But outside of that, we don't have a plot twist here. Nor do we have a character development. What we do have is basically just this one question. Like, is Axel right for me? And should I play with society's norms or should I rebel against them with my own actions?
It's kind of the kids question as well. When do you know when you're ready to have kids? Who does? When's the right moment? The movie jumps from one thing to the next, and many of these feelings that are depicted on screen are very relatable, and the acting is so strong, as you said as well. So it's kind of this psychotic feel that, yeah, I like this so much on one level, but then I just can't kind of connect with it fully. Is Axel the right guy for him? For her, I don't even know, really. And it's just tremendously sad. There's this one point when they're in the cafeteria or canteen and Axel's sick and she's asking if Axel really thought that she would be a great mother. And I thought that this is this kind of a revenge story emotionally, that, okay, you had everything, girl, but you just fucked it up. But it's not even that. Just life goes on.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the movie. Life goes on and random things happen. And you learn from them or you don't.
And not just that life goes on, but life goes on as peachy as ever. That's my perhaps biggest misgiving with the movie. My biggest problem. That
Yeah.
there is no consequences to
Yeah.
any of these actions. Basically, the life around Julie just works itself out with minimum input from Julie herself.
You know what would have been kind of nice would have been to see at the end of the movie where we could literally see that Julie would have learned something from these experiences. I don't mean to say that okay, now you have to have a husband, a wife, a husband, a kid, and a dog, and everything else that you usually might do in a traditional sense. But this is some kind of a consequence of all these experiences.
Or at least, if consequence really would have been too much to ask from Norway, well, at least some type of a strong emotional response to some of these things, or emotional growth in a bigger level that Julie has in the movie. Like, take the kid or the child as a prime example, and this is the moment. Extremely heavy spoilers.
Hmm.
So, in the course of the film, Julie gets pregnant, and that kind of correlates with the previous question that the movie has had in its beginning, which is Julie being unsure if she's fit for being a mother, and if she even wants kids. Axel, like when she starts to date with Axel wants kids, wants the home life with Julie, and Julie feels that she's not ready for it. She still wants to have her freedom and be able to live her life on her own terms without the having a child that would tie her down. Which, fair point. No problem with that. But in the course of the film, Julie gets pregnant, and there for her there now is a moment where what she has already expressed in the beginning of the film no longer can actually work for her. Like, she can't be free and pregnant at the same time, or she can't end up having the kid and still be free without the kid at the same time. It's a paradox. It does not work. So how does Julie react to this? Well, no way at all. It's when she breaks up with Axel, it's a secret that she keeps for a short while from her next boyfriend, Eivind, to whom she eventually tells that, yeah, I'm pregnant, and Eivind is, okay, well, no biggie, not a problem at all. It's you're pregnant to your previous boyfriend. I accept that completely. And when it comes to question of, well, does this have an effect on Julie's life? Well, no, not at all. She doesn't even quit smoking, even though she is being pregnant. So, no effect. And then at the very end, you would think that this would lead into Julie having to at least face the question, do I have an abortion or do I keep the child? Do I become a mother or do I keep my freedom?
But
Which one of these two is it? And then, staying true to the form of this movie, well, the life just works itself out. You don't have to have for the answer to this question because, well, Julie just miscarriages. Goes to a shower and miscarriage just happens. Life works itself out. You didn't have to solve anything. You didn't have to think anything through. You didn't have to take any responsibility at no point of the story because, magic happens and you just miscarriage.
yeah, you're right. So nothing has a consequence in the film. But could we accept the format of the film just as it is, that it's just a collection of events from a person's life? But then again, I would expect some kind of results from those events that are not directly correlated to each other necessarily.
Precisely, because in real life, your life is not this carefree.
Yeah.
You are not consequence free in your life. Like, in real life, if you get accidentally pregnant, it does not, well, it can. There's a possibility that it will just sort itself out. But the possibilities for that are actually pretty dim. Yeah, in real life, that would be a huge deal for you. It would have to be something that you would have to somehow resolve. take another example. Julie being afloat in her life. Her constantly, shifting from one field of study to the next. I'm a med student. I switch to psychology. I switch to photography, and her just switching from one job to another. That's also something that you can do in real life. And if you are afloat, yeah, happens to all of us. None of us has a great plan set for us. Not a problem. You're not a failure if you are afloat in life. And if you are someone who has to switch from from one school to the next or one job to the next, not a problem. But those are things that will have a cumulative effects to your life. They will affect how your life will shape out. You are not this carefree.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. Like if you switch from photography to being someone who sells coffee to a blog writer, and then again once more into a next job, that will do have an effect. Like, for example, in real life, your chances of getting jobs gets dimmer and dimmer. Or if you don't manage to finish any education at all, like Julie does not, because she drops all her schools at some point of the film, well, that will also affect your life. It means that you are not like officially qualified enough for certain jobs. It's a limiting factor in your life. It's okay if you don't manage to graduate, but it's going to be a limiting factor in your life. But the film kind of states that it's no biggie, because once again, the grace of God, law, life, whatever it is, will just sort these things out for you.
And I was hoping that there would be a moment where, well, if not getting caught for being with another guy in the middle of a relationship, it would have been nice to see something that she would take from that. If not getting caught, then learning from that. But yeah, as you said, it's just she has no consequences coming from that, and even seems a little indifferent at points to what she has done to these people.
Well, she hasn't really done anything to these people if we believe the film itself. Because all her boyfriends are like super accepting and super supportive of her when she breaks up with them.
Yeah, super rational.
Yep. The only response that she gets from any of her boyfriends when the breakup happens is like, "You were the love of my life, this breaks my heart, but I respect you as a modern free woman, and if you feel that this is something you want to do, break up with me, I absolutely fully support you on your decision." Every guy in the film. To a point where there is kind of well, as we mentioned already in the joke part, there's this time stop moment
Not done with CGI.
film when the whole world kind of stops around Julie. It happens in her mindscape, inside her head. I took it, but with that out of the way, even in her own head, the world literally stops around Julie when she starts to think about Eyvind, just so that she can kind of, even in her own mind, she can be carefree to chase after another guy while she's being in relationship with Axel.
Kind of.
So it's not just that every man in Julie's life supports her misgivings. It's also that, well, Julie's entire mindscape, her entire psyche also supports Julie when she decides that, yeah, perhaps I'm gonna cheat on my current boyfriend, perhaps I'm going to break up with my boyfriend. It's no biggie. It's no biggie even for the character of Julie herself, which becomes painfully obvious or evident in her breakup scene with Axel, which is kind of the most pivotal breakup scene that this movie has, because Axel, once again, is supposed to be like the main question guy. Do I love this dude? Is he right for me? So when Julie breaks up with Axel, it's supposed to be like a really big deal in the film. Basically, all the complexities of a breakup with Axel in the film itself are being swept under the rug, when Julie shifts her focus to think about how she just has compared herself to Bambi while she's 30 something. Like that's the goddamn narrator, the god voice of the film cuts in the middle of the breakup scene when actually is supposed to say something about how he feels, just to shine a light about what is going through Julie's head during this breakup moment when she's supposed to like open her heart and tears are flowing from her eyes, and like it's supposed to be super emotional for Julie. The God voice cuts in and tells us what Julie is thinking, and what is Julie thinking? She's thinking that, oh my God, I'm 30 something and I have just compared myself to Bambi. That's like the emotional stakes that we have with our main character.
And by the hospital bed, the Axel character even says to her that you are an amazing person, which I really didn't feel that she was in any way. What was the word? Anyway, amazing, wonderful, great person probably. And
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think maybe that was a bit of a point making there that yeah, you're not.
I don't know. On the other hand, I took that, well, she is supposed to be amazing person because Axel uses literally almost his last breath to tell Julie how the only thing that Axel would regret in his entire life up until this point when he finally dies is the possibility that he did not manage to tell Julie how absolutely gosh darn amazing Julie is. That the only thing that Axel looks back on his dying bed is, did I manage to tell Julie how absolutely amazing she is? It's not, did I manage to be a good brother? Did I manage to do something that's important? Does my art, since I'm a comic book artist guy, does it live after me? Is my legacy mirrored with, my underground comic not being exactly on par with the modern sensibilities? It kind of being perhaps a bit toxic, perhaps a bit woman-hating. Did I set up wrong societal values and expectations and models through my art? None of these questions are in Axel's mind when he's dying. No, that the final question: did I manage to tell Julie how absolutely amazing she is? And my biggest regret in my whole life would be if I just failed on doing that one thing.
Favorite performance? I will give you Renate Reinsve.
Yeah, I give it Renate as well. There were, like I said, there were a lot of good performances here, but I do think that Renate perhaps is the one who broke out the most from the cast.
Yeah, in particular, if I want to highlight something, there's a scene when she's with Axel at an event where Axel is, I believe, showing off his newest comic book, something like this, or it's like a art gallery thing about his comic book art, and Julie is like, okay, I think I'm gonna go out for the night. I've had enough. I will go home, and she walks, and she's going down this hill, and she's just looking all over the place, and there's a great performance there in her eyes when you can just tell what she is thinking completely. She's kind of happy, but also a bit unhappy, feels a bit living vicariously, and is not able to, I guess, be on her own, do her own thing, whatever the case. But she performs greatly. What resonated with you the most or the least?
From my end, it's the least, and it's all the social bullshit that the film has.
Well, I can think of what resonated with me the least was when Axel was sick and she visited. They were in tears talking outside. I just felt that, yeah, there's no consequence. But if something good, yeah, the performances alone, they felt real. But in one adjective, how would you describe the film?
Mine would be aimless, because Julie is aimless, and I do think that the film too, it's not completely, but it is partly aimless.
I would say nasty. It's a bit nasty.
I do expect that in the longies I hear more about the nastiness of the film.
Just a non-consequence way of the film. Just leaving it at that.
Okay.
And cheating on your boyfriend. Favorite quote, if any?
From this film.
Oh, nothing.
No.
Ah,
You can try a few mates to find some really great quotes.
yeah, I like this one quite a lot actually. But then again, maybe just didn't kind of hit enough in the end. So it's I grew up in an age without internet and mobile phones. No, but honestly, I sound like an old fart. But I think about it a lot. The world that I knew has disappeared. For me, it was all about going to stores, record stores. I'd take the tram to Voices in Grüne Löcka, leaf through used comics and at pretty price. I can close my eyes and see the aisles at Video Nova in something mishmashes too. I grew up in a time when culture was passed along through objects. They were interesting because we could live among them. We could pick them up, hold them in our hands, compare them. That's all I have. I spent my life doing that, collecting all that stuff, comics, books, and I just continued even when it stopped giving me the powerful emotions I felt in my 20s. I continued anyway, and now it's all I have. Knowledge and memories of stupid, futile things nobody cares about. And now I have nothing else. I have no future. I can only look back. End quote. Do you think the film has staying power legacy? Will anyone remember this in 20 years?
Well, the film is the final part in the director's trilogy.
Thematic trilogy, which wasn't supposed to be, but it just happened.
Yup. So as a closing chapter of a trilogy, yeah, this one will have some, and I do think that there's enough hype around it now that it will end up having some legacy. I do believe that the legacy will be as the director made this trilogy, and these are the films that belong into it. And then the worst person will be screened whenever somebody watches the entire trilogy. Does it have like this huge, enormous societal legacy? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's been a lot of great Nordic films, and even though this might win some prizes, I feel that it's just gonna be forgotten. But yeah, we didn't mention that this film has been nominated for the best screenplay as well as the best international, and it just might take the best screenplay, even if I might not agree with that completely.
Well, thanks to all the social stuff, the social political stuff, I do think that it is a possibility.
Complete the sentence. You really know you're watching the worst person in the world when
the height of your selfishness is you tripping balls.
wanna explain?
So basically, in the film we have a whole chapter named Julie's Narcissistic Circus.
Yeah.
Which you think that, since we now are mentioning that this is Julie's narcissism, we are really getting into finally some really heavy, deep and heavy character stuff.
Oh.
It's on now. It only took the film for 1 hour and 15 minutes to get to this point, but certainly now, yeah, we are dealing with main character's narcissism, so most definitely it's on now. And what happens in the chapter is, well, this is the moment when Julie takes the shrooms, and her entire narcissistic circus is her shroom trip. So Julie's tripping balls, and she's also tripping balls because this is kind of the main moment after which Julie starts to have the feeling that Eyvind is not the right for her.
Yeah, it's true. You really know you're watching the worst person in the world when you don't know what you had until you've lost it, such as your sunglasses.
And 2 hours of time.
But did you like the film?
It was perfectly okay.
It wasn't the worst movie in the world.
No. Like I said, I disliked Hand of God more. But was I like blown away by this movie? No.
But
no, it was absolutely meh. And now I've seen it.
But it was really artistic.
Yeah, it's like one of the 5 best films to come out this year worldwide.
Yeah, no questions asked.
Yeah, which actually presents the question exactly how shit is the cinema of the rest of the world.
Would you watch this film again?
No.
I might.
The cinematography is not that magnificent. Like
Mm,
it does have some good cinematography, but it's not so breathtaking. It's not so inventive that it really merits to watch this film the second time.
yeah, it's more about the locations, isn't it? And the colors.
Yeah, I can get colors and locations from other movies as well.
Yeah, so not so much about. Okay, I don't want to bash the cinematography. Great job, but would would you recommend the worst person in the world, Henrik?
No. I've voiced out my grievances when it comes to the main character and when it comes to the whole thing how nothing matters in this film. The Americans have this subgenre called the slacker movies, where the idea is that you have the slacker who is some type of a societal misfit, someone who does not completely like fall in line with the societal's expectations. Usually is end up like stuck in some dead end job, smokes weed, just listens to indie music. Well, we all know the slacker archetype.
Mm.
And to me, the worst person in the world is a spiritual slacker movie because Julie very much is exactly that character, minus the weed smoking. She just smokes regular cigarettes. But where the slacker movies usually have the come-up-in scene, like let's use, for example, Kevin Smith's Clerks as an example, has two characters who mostly throughout the movie just kind of are going through life, aimlessly drifting. But there are a couple of moments where trappings of the slacker genre kind of show up. The first one is in the funeral scene where one of the duo completely fucks it up. Was it Randall, if I remember correctly? Causes a havoc, accidentally makes the casket collapse, and they have to escape from the funeral with their reputations ruined and their lives barely intact. Later in the film, there is like the culmination scene that you usually have in slacker movies, which is the moment when some character in the slacker's closed personal circles calls the slacker out on his bullshit. Happens in Clerks. The worst person in the world never has that moment. And on top of that, like I mentioned quickly in the jokey jokes part, this is very much a film that wants to present itself as a film for the modern audiences, like the modern youth audiences, 30 something moviegoers. And it goes after this goal with extremely heavy societal topicism. You have all the societal topics, like we mentioned the mansplaining, womansplaining. There's the tampoon. There's the whole point, like how menstrual bleeding, for example, is a taboo in movies and it shouldn't be. And then it actually never does anything with these questions. Like where does the whole menstrual bleeding thing eventually culminate in the film? Well, during the shroom trip, Julie pulls out her bloody tampoon and shows it to camera. Nothing comes out of it. There's the question of freedom of speech versus artistic freedom, which eventually boils down into, well, the most caricaturistic presentation of both viewpoints. You have the comic book artist Axel who yells how people are trying to silence him in the modern society, and how as an artist he should have the absolute freedom of speech, and then calls the radio interviewer a whore in live broadcast. And on the other side you have the radio interviewer who once again raises the whole point that we are not trying to in any way, limit your freedom of speech, even though that kinda is precisely what you are doing.
Hmm.
And nothing comes out of that. Like that's the handling of those topics. It stays on this level. It's extremely surface level observations that the film makes, and on top of that, it's even somewhat like late observations that the film makes. Like you and I, we watched the latest James Bond film,
Mm.
and you were preparing to see No Time to Die, did you actually notice that people were trying to make a huge ruckus about this tampon gate surrounding the movie?
Yeah, we discussed it and never happened.
Yeah. So here's a mind-blowing observation from the worst person of the world. Have you actually noticed that movies never show tampons? Yeah, I have. We did. So brings it up as some type of a clever, deep observation about pop culture and media culture, and you are just waiting that, well, what you are going to then say about this whole tampon thing. And then the film just shows you that, well, here's a bloody tampon. We are not afraid to actually break this taboo. Look, here it is. And you, in the audience, you are just looking at it. Okay, it's a bloody tampon, so what? Anyone who has actually given an oral sex to a woman has actually seen something way worse than bloody tampon. So what's the huge point? For 2 hours, I was not expecting just that there would be some comeuppance or some emotional growth, emotional responsibility that Julie would have to take upon herself. But I was also waiting that some of these societal topics, any one of these, would somehow play up into a deeper conversation.
Yeah.
And none of it ever does.
If anything, in favor of that TV interview kind of gives me at least the idea that, so Axel is now pissed off in the radio interview, not because of what's being said about his comics, but because she has broken up with him, and it's a problem that needs to be fixed. But instead, the movie surprises us and tells us that Axel actually has cancer. That's why he's so pissed off, or that's how I read it. So that was a kind of a surprise twist to me. But then again, not useful, because I was hoping that it would bring them together somehow. Kinda does, kinda doesn't.
And from there, I think that we kind of again land on the responsibilities that films kind of have. And I do feel that the worst person in the world is somewhat irresponsible in basically the worldview that it presents. And I don't say this because I disagree with worst person's worldview. Like, it very much wants to be and say that it's okay to be adrift in your life. It's very okay to, drop your studies if you start to feel that this is not your field. It's very okay to, change your job, change your boyfriend. You don't have to, you are free to push against the societal expectations where you get the degree and then you go to the job and then you meet someone and then you form, the nuclear family and you become a mother, etc., etc., etc. It's honestly, it's okay to be against all of that.
But take something from it. And I'm not saying that make the nuclear family, but don't make the same stuff again, right?
Yeah, precisely. Because the film strongly voices it out that there are no consequences to any of these decisions that you make. Like, in that vein, this is very close to Christian cinema. You have these stories that there's the main character and shit happens to them. They lose their job and their house burns down, and their significant other is diagnosed with leukemia or what have you. Everything goes wrong, but the main character keeps his faith and keeps on praying. And at the end of a film, the grace of God just ascends upon the main character and fixes everything. And that's kind of what happens in worst person in the world also, minus the God. It's the grace of the script, or the grace of female empowerment, or grace of, I don't know, going against societal taboos that ascends upon Julia and just fixes everything. Is she happy that her blog post started the discussion? Is she disappointed? Does she feel that her points are being weaponized, to serve some viewpoint, some side on the debate? Is she targeted by online trolls? Who the fuck knows, because the film never actually shows you anything of the sort.
Yeah.
Everything works out constantly for Julie. She's being congratulated for absolutely everything. And that's where I do feel that it's a bit irresponsible. Like, people need to hear that lesson that they are not broken or bad people because they don't know what they want to do in life, or because they don't want to settle down and have kids and have a family. It's all okay, but all of those have consequences.
But what I learned from the movie is that, okay, life goes on as it is. She's a photographer, and other people around her get married.
Yeah, I learned that it's okay that you don't have a degree on anything. You can just land a job on film, simply because you took one course in photography.
Or you can just set up a film podcast and not have a degree, just start it.
Well, you do have a degree.
Oh.
So fuck.
Oh,
you are more qualified than the main character of the film. Why aren't you working on film then?
Yeah, I just didn't connect with that word enough at the time, and I just went my own separate way. Also kind of adrift in life. Yeah.
And that's okay. That's absolutely okay, but that has had consequences, now hasn't it?
That's such a good question. It has had consequences. It has had consequences. Have I learned something from those consequences? Yeah, I think I've become a better person, which I didn't see in this film happening, yeah.
Uh-huh.
You're right. Still adrift, but I feel like I'm going more and more to the right direction. Even the life goal can be just to be adrift, not have particular goals, but learn something. Would I recommend the film? I actually would, because I'm so interested to know what other people have to say about this film. Please come to our Facebook pages and tell me, why did you like this film? And what did you think about the ending? Who is Julie today?
I do believe that basically everybody else will absolutely love the film and feel that it's the most important film to come out the year 2021.
People absolutely love this film.
It's that year's best romantic movie. It's that year's best comedic movie. Most likely also the best film altogether. Mansplaining, womansplaining, Me Too. It has all these words that we feel that are societally important today. Even though the movie does not do anything with those words, but it does say the words, and I do think that that's perhaps what the people mostly connect when they watch this film. That's the reason why I do think that this actually got nominated for Best Foreign. Not because this is some kind of a groundbreaking cinematic achievement. I actually liked cinematography more in, for example, Drive My Car. Also in Lunana.
Mm-hmm.
I thought had more interesting cinematography. I do think that it got nominated because it has capable cinematography, it has pretty damn good direction, yeah, it has strong performances, and especially because it says a lot of words that are words used in today's societal discussion.
Did I like the film? I didn't really respond to that. I did like the film, and I didn't like the film. It's kind of like when the character herself says that, I love you, but I also don't. And that kind of sums it up for me. But to get to the real questions, the tricky questions here, now we can rank and say which one should win the Oscar if we could decide this to be on the board of Steven Spielberg and company. Henrik, Flee, The Hand of God, The Worst Person in the World, Lunana, Yuck in the Classroom, and Drive My Car. How to sort these?
I was actually afraid of this question because I'm not 100% certain what should be the correct order. I knew my two least favorites. Number one is The Hand of God, and the second one is The Worst Person in the World.
Okay.
After that, when it comes to the rest three of the films, Lunana, Flee, and Drive My Car, well, that's a tough competition, really.
It is.
I perhaps would put Lunana in place 3.
Okay.
And then, it would be like it's a really hard competition. There's a question between Drive My Car and Flee. Which one should win the Best Foreign? Perhaps Flee. And the reason for that is because it takes a stance on the immigration question, and it tells a story about exactly how dangerous and risky it is to make the trip as an immigrant. Like Lunana, Drive, and Flee, they're all really strong films. absolutely like them, and it's pretty hard to say like which movie is better. Like is Flea better than Lunana? Is Drive My Car is it better film than all the rest? Really hard to say, but well, it goes to the societal themes and societal signaling of Flea. I perhaps would give the Oscar to Flea because that was a story about a real thing, and the rest of the movies are films about a fictional things.
Just because it's fiction?
Yeah,
Wow.
at the end of the day, because Flea is the most non-fiction film of the list, I would give best foreign to Flea. Because goddamn, I don't know how else choose the winner here
Well, in a
or
way,
choose the number one, because I do love like the cinematography in Drive and Yuck, and I love it in Flea.
Flea is the most important. You're not kind of wrong with that. Yeah, it's really hard to rank these. So different pictures, so many different angles. I'm still gonna keep worst person, maybe surprisingly at the last slot. That's the fifth movie. Still, then I'm gonna put there Drive My Car as I
Ooh, that's
kinda.
pretty low for Drive. I'm not entirely surprised. It's pretty low.
Yeah, it is a bit brutal, but like I said, it's super hard to rank these. But Drive My Car, I had my gripes about the emotional development and the character interactions. But The Hand of God, I also have more and more gripes towards the film as time goes on. Hannu Björkpakka truly, when he responded to our episode and gave that 20 tweet post about it on his views, I can like 125% see where he's coming from. I understand it completely. But on the other hand, I felt very strongly that it was also depicting the time period, the thoughts of the people at the time. I felt that it was also pretentious. I felt that it was too self-congratulatory, too self-indulged, and the characters together didn't really click. It was also a very random occurrence film, and a lot of it could have been stronger and less sexual, and I guess less from the male perspective, and giving us such of an easy way to read it as male fantasy more than some kind of a history of the director. Also, the story that I read to it was something that resonated to a degree. So let's just keep it at the number 3 position. And then the second one, it's a battle between Flea and Yak, isn't it? Oh, still in terms of originality, what if I just put Lunana at the top position? I'll just do it there. And I think Academy would be happy with that because it's a movie that is coming from this small country of Bhutan, and it's gonna be a story of it's gonna be an American wonder story if they're gonna pick this one. Small country of Bhutan is gonna get all this exposure, and now all the filmmakers want to go to Bhutan to make films and bring money to the country. And hooray, Bhutan! It has that. Flea, as we've stated before, it has the refugee crisis, which goes perfectly with the Ukraine crisis right now, Ukraine war. So most likely, if I had to guess, the Academy is gonna pick Flea because of politics. The Hand of God, no, they won't. Drive My Car, they might as well, because it already won a hell of a lot of prizes. Worst person in the world. It could also be that, heck. But due to politics, I'm gonna go with Flea, and personally gonna go with Lunana. Great cinematography, great idea, and very, 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 very real performances.
Yeah, I guess that was this year's best foreign category summed up the least interesting category of the film Oscars. not because that the movies wouldn't be good or because the movies themselves wouldn't be interesting, but simply because Oscars themselves are not interesting. At least if you like look at the categories. If you want to talk about Oscars, the interesting discussions is about basically in everything that is wrong with Oscars. But that's a discussion that you can't have with Best Foreign because it's like the most safest place for the Academy to share their the prizes and the Oscars.
Yeah, Well, those were our thoughts on the rankings. I suppose we're gonna connect like a quick talk about the Oscars after they actually happen and see what they actually picked there.
Yep. We'll see if we actually do that.
Which films did you like, dear listener? Come and tell us on our social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. And you can also find us on Library if you are watching your videos via that service instead. And yep, next week or the next time we are here in Fortnite, I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but most likely it'll be movies, as per usual.
Or then we switch to comic books.
No, yeah, well, we've been talking about movies for quite a while. Where do you want to take it next? Ukraine war?
I don't know. Baseball player cards could be our next venue. Now that we have been talking about movies almost 3 years.
Or books? One book per fortnight.
Oh god, that's too much work at the moment. Hundreds upon hundreds of pages of reading.
Our theme music was done by Nick Grivell. I'm Karri Ojala, your Henrik Telkki, I believe. And that's the show for today. Bye, 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 bye.
Kuinka tyhmäksi me halutaan vetää tää? Mä en ole varautunut tähän sarkasmiin, joka sulta tulee. Kuinka syvälle me halutaan nojata tässä? Kuinka pitkälle me halutaan jatkaa tätä källiä?
Ehkä kuikisseihin asti sitten ehkä voisi vaihtaa. Viimeistä. But Henrik, I'm really serious about this.
About what? Like now you are losing me with your sarcasm, man.